The Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Adam Caplan and Geoff Mosher. What a powerful intro for the late June here as we get fired up, Adam, to finish off our positional preview series that we've been doing. We're going to talk about the secondary this episode, and that could be about a 3-part series in itself, just breaking down corner, safety, and nickel corner and trying to figure out everything that's going on there. But we'll have a good time going through it like we've been doing for every position. And we are going to do for those who are listening when this comes out Thursday at 6 a.m., we will do our Inside the Birds Ask ITB live stream tonight at 9 o'clock, Thursday, 9 p.m. We'll answer your questions. We've been doing that every other week. And then most likely next week, we'll have another interview show for ITB TV. So if you got any questions for Adam or myself, please be following at Inside the Birds at Inside Birds on Twitter or at Caplan NFL, at Geoff Mosher NFL. Around 9 o'clock, we'll be tweeting out the link or just be on our YouTube channel at that time, and you'll be able to find it. The latest Q&A is out. It's a really good episode. They touched on a lot of things, Adam, from the wide receiver situation going on right now. They talked a little bit about the Nick Mullens addition, which there was a really good point about it, and I'll get to that in a second. Mike Gill also made this observation, and I didn't think about it at the time, but it's pretty relevant. And then they relived the Monday Night Massacre. Do you remember that game, the 59-28 Eagles win in Washington in 2010? It was listen, there was a lot to that game because remember that was the year Donovan was traded to Washington. They played in Philly earlier in the year. Somehow the Washington won that game, and Donovan only threw for 150. He wasn't very good, but he came into the locker room after and acted like he just led the parade down Broad Street or something like that as part of the enemy. So they got back, and that game was. I don't know if you remember how that game. There was a fight before the game between.
Well, wait, are we talking about 2010 was the Michael Vick game, the Monday night game? I know it because I was there in Washington. I've only been there twice.
Right.
Vick went off. One of the best performances I've ever seen for a quarterback live. That was when it was the bomb to Deshaun, and Clay Harbor had the chip block.
Yep.
And that game was ridiculous. It was like they kind of knew what the coverages they were going to get, and it was aggressive.
I will bet you $100. I'll give you $100 of ITB money, of course. If you can name for me the Eagles running back in that game who had a 50-yard touchdown run.
Oh God. Oh jeez.
I gotta play the Jeopardy theme soon.
Don't know. I can't. 50. Man, I remember certain things about that game where they were unstoppable in the air, but I have no idea.
Jerome Harrison.
Oh yeah! Wow.
Yeah. I think that year they traded him to Detroit, and then the Lions medical team discovered that he had a tumor.
It wasn't the Eagles medical team, or am I wrong about that?
No, maybe it was
11 years ago.
So maybe it was backwards. Maybe he was traded to the Eagles, and at some point the Eagles found that he had a tumor.
Yeah, I thought that's what it was, but again, this is 11 years ago, so I don't remember.
I don't remember what I did yesterday, so I can definitely understand that. No, yeah, Macklin had 2 touchdowns. Jason Avonte had a 3-yard touchdown in that game. And now that play is famous, as they talked about on Q&A, for Michael Vick before he hit Jason Avonte on the 3-yard touchdown, had about 45 seconds of just scrambling around, avoiding, hits and just trying to figure out who to throw to.
Mm-hmm.
Albert Hainsworth lunges at him early in the play, misses, and just lays there on the turf while the rest of the play is going on. And Jason was like, this guy's $100 million player.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that was a crazy contract. Yeah, it obviously he never made even close to 100 million, but it because of the size of it, had he played well, he might have made it.
Right.
But that was an historic deal. And talk about an underachiever, Albert Hainsworth, man. When he would bring it, it was almost like Fletcher Cox, that unstoppable. He just did it enough.
Yeah, I mean, he did make a lot of guaranteed money. So, yes, he did not make 100, but he sure made a lot of money and did not produce a whole heck of a lot for that Washington team. Now, certainly not the player that he was with the Titans. So the point Jason made, and Q was talking to him about it too, that it didn't really occur to me until Gil asked me in an interview about it, was when you have a third quarterback, Adam, like Nick Mullens, who the Eagles have now, who has started games in this league, who has, he may not be very good, but he's completed 65% of his passes. Again, he started games for the 49ers and a good coach in Shanahan. That actually helps the bottom of the roster for the entire offense, because you feel like your running backs who catch passes and your wide receivers, especially this young group of wide receivers, right, who are running with the third and fourth teams, get a pretty good ball deliverer as compared to what you would have gotten from a rookie free agent or somebody else who never started a game in the NFL, like a lot of third string quarterbacks.
Yeah, no doubt. Look, no question. I mean, you won't find a third quarterback like this guy. Most third quarterbacks are journeymen at the end of their career, undrafted free agents. So this guy's an undrafted free agent for the 49ers, but this guy has been a high-level undrafted free agent. He showed some promise. I always thought the problem with him was his arm, and I think that turned out to be right as time would pass. But seeing him in training camp a couple of years ago, I noticed how accurate he was and how he could scan the field. And he's a typical West Coast offensive quarterback, old school, timing, rhythm, get it out. And when he's got himself together, there was a Monday night game years ago, maybe 3 years ago, against the Raiders. They demolished the Raiders. I think he might have started that game. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember watching him a little bit and saying, wow, this guy's interesting. He knows where to go with the football, but in the end, he's simply not going to be good enough because his arm isn't strong enough.
Right. But good enough to be a number 3 QB.
Oh, great. Yeah, for that. And for training camp, are you kidding? I mean, he's a much better camp arm than usual camp arms. I guess the best way to look at it.
Do you think he's guaranteed to make the team?
No. He's barring something unforeseen, he won't be on the roster. I don't see them keeping 3 quarterbacks.
I was wondering that because this is a unique situation where they have a third quarterback who's started a decent amount of games in the league.
It would have to be A, one of the 2 quarterbacks above him are hurt, or B, he's not. He was a non-tenor restricted free agent, which means he's not vested. So he would be subject to waivers. It'd be a situation where, you know what, we don't want to waive him because he could be claimed. Let's keep him on a roster for now, and then we may cut him in the season and hopefully he clears. Who knows? But most teams now only keep 2 quarterbacks. It's just not. And the Eagles historically have kept 2 more than 3. They have kept 3 before, but they've been more 2 than 3. It all depends on their situation with injuries and what Sirianni wants and what the front office needs. And plus for special teams, not that he's on special teams, but it's what they need for special teams, because you have a new special teams coach. So how he looks at special teams and how Sirianni looks at special teams could be different than Doug Peterson.
Absolutely. I remember Chip Kelly put a lot more emphasis on special teams than most. I remember they signed players who were just simply known as special teams players.
The wild
players,
man,
like
the linebacker.
Yeah.
What was that?
Brian Brayman.
Yep, you got it. Yeah, he was a highly paid special teams player. Chip Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
At all the camps I think I've been to in 21 years, I've never seen a coach spend more time on special teams. My goodness gracious.
No doubt about it. And then Chris Maragos was also signed in that kind of role. And who was the kid? Oh, he came over from the Colts. I think he played at Montana. Colt Anderson. Colt Anderson.
Yep.
Yeah. Now I feel like Doug put some emphasis on special teams, but not as much as Chip. But they did sign players who had special teams experience. Like they wanted guys for special teams.
Plus, you also had a great special teams coach. So, although he's now he's with Detroit. But the fact of the matter is, it's good for them to keep. Just to sum this up, for them to keep Mullens, it would take almost an extraordinary situation.
Right.
There's no point on, because that's what the practice squad is for. And don't forget. We believe you're going to have the 16-man practice squad again because they're keeping all the rules. Mm-hmm. That's why every team is reporting, as I understand, on the 27th, because we're still under some sort of COVID restrictions, although they're way more relaxed. A day before, today's Thursday, Wednesday, the league sent all the teams memo that, man, if you're not getting vaccinated, folks, if you're a player or coach, I know some coaches who haven't been vaccinated yet. Not many though.
Mhm.
Though you are going to be under some severe restrictions in terms of wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, and spending time around your teammates or other coaches. It's just going to make it more difficult. So we'll see what happens there.
It's going to be an interesting situation as we watch it unfold around the league because take Zach Wilson, I think, the Jets quarterback, was asked by the media if he had been vaccinated, and he said he wasn't going to answer. That's a private question. So I'm not going to assume that means he hasn't been. He's just keeping it private, but I'm sure there will be players of either prominence or playing a prominent position that don't get vaccinated. And these players are going to be they're going to have to adhere to the rules, which means they're going to be isolated from a lot of their teammates. So how many of them will continue to just say, I don't care, I'm not getting it, and be isolated? And certain players can do it. And what's the team going to do? Cut its starting quarterback who might be a 3-time Pro Bowler? No, it's going to be annoying, but there's going to be guys who are either fighting for roster spots or, they might be judged by this. So we'll have to see what happens. I mean, the teams may decide they want players who are going to be in the meeting rooms and next to the players and doing that.
You cannot cut them for not taking the
right, but they would never know.
Right, exactly, because they could make up some. It's like you're not supposed to cut a player. Like these injury guarantees and contracts are basically phony guarantees. They're just for show for agents to puff up deals.
Mm-hmm.
I could think of maybe twice in my career where the injury guarantees actually meant something. But what'll happen is they'll find some reason. They'll find some way teams will allow injuries to cut a player, and they always get away with it. So going forward here, it's Cole Beasley, the slot receiver for the Bills, he's not getting it. But we'll see. Look, he's a prominent player. That's the other thing is we're not going to quite know who all the prominent players aren't getting the COVID or aren't taking the shot. Mm-hmm. So that's not good for preparation. That's an issue.
Well, that's what I was wondering. How is the NFL are teams mandating that you show up proof of vaccination?
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah, I don't know because that's a great question. You should have. I guess that's because
how else would you know, right?
Right, exactly. How else would you know unless you show that card? And by the way, the card is like paper. Yes. I got to get mine laminated, right?
No, they tell you not. For some reason, I read that you're not supposed to get it laminated.
Well, it's going to wear out. I mean,
I know. I feel the same way. Oh, and plus, I lose things like that. I mean, I feel like I need to tack this up on my refrigerator, like it's an A+ on a test or something like that, just to make sure I never lose it. I hate the fact that it's in my wallet scares me. So I don't know. I may have to do something with it. But that was my first thought too. We're from the old school. You get it laminated. It's like putting your name on your underwear when you're 6 years old, so it doesn't get lost or something like that.
Who was it? Who was the head coach who got? I guess the card got rained on, so then he laminated his card, the play sheet.
Oh, I don't remember that. I don't know. It feels like something Big Red would do, but I don't know.
It actually might have been Rich Kotite. I don't remember because Kotite called his own plays. I don't remember. Richie Uptight, as I used to call him.
There you go. All right. So, definitely will be interesting to see how that works out. All right. I've got an update for you, Adam. And in the last podcast, I told you my daughter was playing for a championship softball game, right? Wednesday night or Tuesday night.
Yep.
We are the champions, baby. We won.
Boom.
We are the champs. So very proud of my daughter. She had 2 hits, an RBI, 2 putouts at second base. So she did her thing out there. She made the Mosher family proud.
Awesome. Do you think that she's how old is your daughter?
She's 12. This one's 12. I have 2. Yeah.
Man, maybe she'll play through middle school and high school. Wow.
Maybe she made her district's team as well, which is like all the best players from the teams in the town get together. So we still got more softball to go. Maybe another championship.
Wow. Now, were you a softball guy growing up? Did you play softball or hardball in high school?
I didn't play for my high school, but I mean, baseball was my first love. It's the first sport I played. It's the sport I played the most. I mean, I loved baseball since I was 4, man. So I didn't really get into the I'd say I got into basketball second, and I was probably 14 by the time I got into basketball. I was a little bit older than most. And then football came even after that, like maybe 15 or 16. So I was kind of a late bloomer to football?
When Dr. J was acquired from the Nets in the merger of the ABA to NBA, that's when I became a Sixers fan and an NBA fan.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Vermeil came in around that time in '77, I became sort of an Eagles fan, more of an NFL fan, because I followed college football as whatever I was, 9 or 10 years old. And just to Dick Vermeil was a big thing. And now he's 80 or 81 or 82. Back then he was probably late 30s. Mm-hmm. This is a big deal. Bringing Dick Vermeil was a phenomenal coach here. I mean, the culture, folks, don't worry about him not winning a Super Bowl here. If you had any idea how garbage the Eagles were before Vermeil came here, it was absolutely absurd. Right. They were an embarrassment, absolute embarrassment. He was the first head coach, as Mel Reese told us. And don't forget that our interview we did with him, folks, it's incredible. He talks about Dick's big thing was to cut first thing order of business, beat Dallas. He understood how big of a rival and how much the Eagle fans hated Dallas.
Right. No, he got it. It was great. So yeah, from a basketball standpoint, Adam, the Jordan era obviously got me in, even though I couldn't stand Jordan, but I mean, I respected him, but
he was
a nemesis.
Growing up here, hated him.
Let me tell you, the 1993 NBA Finals to me was just even though Barkley and the Suns lost, I thought that was just an amazing finals because those two guys went at it like crazy. I mean, they had unbelievable games. Do you remember how good Barkley was in that finals in a losing effort?
And then Steve Kerr hits the shot.
Yeah.
Or Bushler, I can't remember. Yeah,
at that point, no, it was Kerr. Yeah. But Barkley was unbelievable. He almost could have gotten MVP in a loss in a losing series because he was so good. I think game 2 he had like 40 points or something like that. He was
unstoppable.
He was really good. Yeah.
6'4.5" power forward is just absurd.
Mm-hmm.
And Barkley, I remember talking to Charles about this years ago. We did sports final together. During the lockout in 2011. I can't believe it's been that long ago. But I just remember talking to him about what he had to do to be great. I mean, he had to outwork, because when you're 6'4.5" and at power forward, I don't care what area, you can't make that. I mean, it's just what a fun player to watch.
Yeah, it was awesome. But anyway, back to softball. We are the champions. Yep, now you asked me if I played. I retired from trying to play softball a long time ago. The best I do now is as an assistant coach on the team is like fungos. I hit him ground balls, I hit him pop flies, because I've retired from that a long, long time ago. But I'm still winning, and so are you, Adam, because we use Deal Dash, the online shopping platform. It's fun. Don't be a loser. Stop paying full retail price for things you want. Just get them on Deal Dash, DealDash.com, or you download the app. And when you register, use the promo code ITB for a special offer. When you sign up, you'll get bonus free bids. That's ITB for a special offer on some bonus free bids. All right, let's get into this podcast. We'll start with some of the we talked a little bit about Nick Mullens already, but it's funny because that transaction happened the day that our podcast already dropped at 6 a.m. on Monday. So people kept asking, why didn't you talk about Nick Mullens?
We did.
And then the reality is we actually did. Yeah, you reported last week that Mullens was on this team's radar. Yeah. And not only that, I mean, we talked about why it made sense, and it was because of his experience in a true, 2000 style West Coast offense with Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, we gave you the answers to the test, folks. If you don't listen, there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, we give as much as we can. I mean, there wasn't a guarantee they were going to sign him, but they were looking at one other quarterback. I believe it was Sean Mannion, because of his experience with Sean McVay and obviously Mullens with Shanahan. And this is a smart move, as we said earlier here. This is a guy, if you're going to use a camp arm like this guy, this is a perfect guy, because it's a very astute point about the third string quarterback is going to upgrade the competition and just the level of play from a quarterback for a third. You don't find third string quarterbacks like this. As you said, he started a bunch of games, more than 10.
I mean, he's got more starts than Nate Sudfeld has.
There you go.
More.
Way more. But now I know he didn't play well against the Niners. It was a Jannard Avery game, but the guy's been a good story. So they gave up on him. He struggled a little bit last year, but again, you're not going to find anyone better than this as a third stringer.
So what's interesting about his stats, right, is that he's completed 65% of his passes for his career, and yet he's also, which tends to, make you think that he's fairly accurate. But he's also thrown 22 interceptions to 24 or 25 touchdowns. So it's like, how can someone who's completing 65% of their pass, what is it? Every incompletion is an interception? Like, how does that work?
I know it is wild. I agree with you. But look, so you got that one, and then So they were the three players they cut last week have been replaced by Mullens, Richard Rodgers, and Michael Walker. We talked about on the previous show. So there you go. There's your transactions of the week. They're not done. We'll make more moves by the time we get to training camp. We're still 6 weeks away. Don't fret on Dickerson not signing. I know people are bored, so they're looking for something to talk about Eagles-wise. What's the conspiracy? He's the only guy that they haven't signed yet. Oh, my God, are they going to get him in? Folks, 6 weeks. Relax. Don't worry about it.
It is the time of the year where people get a little antsy about these kind of things, Adam.
A week before, if they haven't signed him, we'll be on it, and we'll be like, okay, what the hell's the story here? I'm not worried about it.
All right, Adam, DraftKings Sportsbook is not only our favorite sportsbook, but America's top-rated sportsbook. We love using DraftKings Sportsbook. Easy to navigate, plenty of instructions for new bettors, and nearly limitless ways to get in on all of the action. Our friends and family have been loving DraftKings Sportsbook, and we know you will too. So listen to this great offer. DraftKings Sportsbook is putting you courtside with a chance to turn $1 into $100 in site credits. That's right. You pick any basketball team that's still in contention. You bet $1. And if that team wins, you cash in $100 in site credits. And don't forget, DraftKings Sportsbook also offers great odds and promotions on baseball, hockey, so much more all week long. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code ITB when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits. Bet on the basketball team of your choice to win its next game. And if it wins, you claim $100 in free credits. That's promo code ITB for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You have to be 21 or older, Pennsylvania only, new customers only. Wager paid out in site credits. Restrictions apply in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Adam, time to get into our positional preview of this Eagles secondary, and we will start, as we usually do, with the cornerback position. There's a lot of names here, so let's just list them one by one. You got Slay, you got Zach McPherson, the rookie. You got Craig James and Michael Jacquette, Josiah Scott, who they traded for, Graylin Arnold, and then so far, Lavert Hill, Shaquille Taylor, and Nate. Is it Meters?
Meters.
Okay,
yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Nate Meters from.
Yep.
He's another Jaguar, isn't he? A former Jaguar.
He's actually Viking.
That's what it was. A Viking. That's what it was. All right. So, the old expression: if you got like two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, right? Do we say that same thing about corners? If you have 5 number 2 corners, you have 0 number 2 corners.
Yeah, I've always said this about depth. It doesn't matter how many players you have. The Eagles can have 50 corners. They only have right now 1 outside corner could start.
Right.
So the slots right now would be Avonte, Maddox, Craig James, and Josiah Scott. Now we were told that Josiah Scott will start initially in terms of his working on the outside first, and then they know he could play the slot, but they want to see if he could contend for a roster spot on the outside first. Plus, they need him on the outside. They need somebody to step up and seize the job opposite Slay other than McPherson. We know they're going to add a veteran at some point. I couldn't tell you when. We're going to get into some names in a couple minutes here of just some guys that could potentially be available if certain things work out. Sort of like an August trade or to the initial 53. Cut down. We'll get to those in a minute, but because I know people have been asking, but look, they're in dire straits here. This is right now by far the number 1 need. There's nothing even comes close. And I know we're only in June here, and I get it. They don't have a game until September. I keep telling myself that. Fans, listen up. Trust me. We're all in the same boat here. We're looking at the same thing. It's a disaster, but I know how it is. I know how teams think. They're not going to panic. They'll get somebody at some point. But right now, on paper, it's a disaster.
It is. I had forgotten to mention Avonte Maddox, so thanks for throwing him in there. And that's a guy who will be in the mix. I think you and I think that no matter what, he's still going to be a slot corner. In fact, I think you have to argue this, Adam. I mean, even an improved Avonte Maddox has to show that he's improved enough to play the slot well, because when he had to play inside when he's been put in there more recently, hasn't even performed that great. He really hasn't consistently performed well since his rookie year, and that's got to change for him because he's got competition chasing him.
Plus, he's played safety. He's played outside. He's played inside corner. They really need to just leave in the slot, live with McPherson and James and whatever veteran they add or whatever player they add, whether it's a trade or as an unrestricted free agent on the street right now. Some of the guys, now let me explain. I'm going to get to my list here. So they're not a lot, and it's not that I know that they're looking at these players. These are just players that I know that are being usurped by additions in free agency of the draft. So let's go to the Raiders. A guy that I really like is Isaiah Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
He's a tall corner. I know that he had a face fracture 2 years ago as a rookie, so he didn't really contribute. The problem that he has is Trayvon Mullens ahead of him, Damon Arnett. Remember now they added Casey Hayward. Nevin Lawson's a slot corner. Meek Robertson's a slot corner, a nickel corner. Isaiah Johnson's definitely not going to be starting. He's a third-year corner from Houston who's a fourth rounder.
Mm-hmm.
He was also on the COVID list, in the last season, so he really hasn't contributed very much, but he's talented.
Wait.
I'm not saying he's available. Their corner situation's been dreadful, but they've got a lot of corners now. So I wonder if the Eagles might check into it or just to see what happens at the end of training camp, see if he's available.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one name to keep a look on there. And Ojemudia, the corner for Denver, coming into the offseason, I said there's no way they would even consider moving him. Well, they've done a lot of corner Denver. We're talking about Denver Broncos here.
Right.
They added Patrick Surtain in the draft. Kyle Fuller from free agency, who played for Vic Fangio in Chicago. Ronald Darby, they're paying $10 million a year.
Right.
Bryce Callahan's back from missing a lot of time, but he's a slot corner. Duke Dawson was a former second-round bust for the Patriots. They got rid of him after a year.
It's a great name, Duke Dawson.
Yeah, I know, right.
Better name for a linebacker, I think, than a corner.
Exactly, right, yeah. Right. You're right. So you just wonder if Ojemudia would be available. Potentially, I know right now he's the guy that they like. He was a third rounder last year, but we have to see how he plays in. I do wonder at the end of training camp, with Surtain, Fuller, and Darby guaranteed to be on the roster.
Uh-huh.
I mean, how many corners are you going to keep? Nate Hairston is a former draftee of the Colts.
Right.
It's a long shot. I just wonder if it's worth a call for the Eagles because he went from being a guy who they probably thought would start at the end of last season, maybe start in year 2 to now. There's no way he's starting on the outside.
Right.
It's worth it,
Right. I want to go back to the Raiders guy again. His name was
Isaiah Johnson. Yeah.
You said he suffered a facial fracture?
Yeah, in year 1, yes.
Oh, okay. So not last year.
No. Year 1. Yeah, and then last year in year 2,
he was on the COVID list.
Yes, he was on the COVID list. He's just been a disappointment. But he's got talent. I just don't know that he's going to get on the field much because Arnett's got to play. Trayvon Mullens going to play. Hayward's going to play. Those are your 3 top outside corners.
Right.
And then, I guess he's the 4th, and they draft Nate Hobbs in the 5th this season. Mm-hmm. And old friend Rasul Douglas is on the team.
No boy.
Bleedy Ray Rilson came over from Atlanta as an unrestricted free agent. So you never know. Right. Again, these are guys that are probably not going to play very much.
I like what you're doing. You're basically looking at teams that have some depth at corner that, may have a good corner that will not make the team. I thought you had said that guy fractured his face and got COVID in the
No.
year.
It was face fracture.
I was going to say that's one heck of a year.
I remember talking to the Raiders about him. They really liked him, and he unfortunately had that injury, the crazy injury in year 1, and then year 2 he had COVID. He was on the COVID list. I don't know if he had COVID, but anyway, he hasn't really contributed very much. So I just wonder potentially if look, Josiah Scott. Okay, Jags were shopping him. He wasn't going to make the team. We'd outlined that he didn't fit their size quotient, which is what they're looking for. They went from being really light at corner to really deep this year. So he was, instead of waiting until the end of training camp, they traded him now. So the Jaguars did to the Eagles. So those would be 2 guys. Harrison Hand, okay, from Temple, if you're a Temple fan.
Oh, yeah. I remember Harrison.
There's another team. He had to play last year because they had so many injuries. Their cornerback group is incredible, the depth they have. No one has better depth. Patrick Peterson, Jeff Gladney, he had an off-the-field issue. So we have to see, but he was the first rounder last year. Cameron Dantzler played well. Harrison Hand, Mackenzie Alexander, Ty Smith, who came over from Tennessee. Chris Boyd, who had to play last year. So you just wonder, Harrison Hand was the 5th rounder last year who got thrown in there because they had injuries. Oh, Bashard Breeland, that was the other guy who just signed there. I mean, where's Harrison? I don't know if Harrison Hand makes a team. We had so many corners. Might be worth a call for them, and he could play on the outside for the Vikings. So that's another one. And I mentioned Duke Dawson, who I don't know that he makes Denver's team. So those are just some people had asked us for several weeks who might be some bottom of the roster guys, corner, 4th or 5th corners that Eagles may like, or who these guys may not make their own teams. But end of August, these might be guys to take a look at.
By the way, this puts a lot of pressure on Darius Slay to come back and just be the guy that he's expected to be. I mean, he was better. I think he's better than people may have thought last year. I know he struggled against Metcalf. He struggled against Avonte Adams. I think everybody on the Eagles struggled last year. There's very few people who you pick out and say you had a good game. So it's hard. It's such a team sport that if everything is breaking down around you, it's hard for you to be at your best. But nonetheless, it's not like the situation is that much better right now, at least as far as the secondary. Yeah, maybe safety's been fortified a little bit, but again, at nickel and other corner, it's dicey there. And if they have injuries, it's dicey there. So it does put a lot of pressure on Slay to come back at him and kind of be the player that they expected him to be last year, and then even going forward because they give him a contract extension. So the spotlight doesn't come off any. It's just as much on him this coming year as it was last year.
Well, actually, no, they restructured. They didn't extend his contract. It's really
that's what I meant, restructure. But they pushed money. What they did though, they pushed money down the future year. So
what they did is this. I'll give you exactly. I have it here. So what they did is they just took 11 million of his base salary for 21, and they converted to a signing bonus. Only for cap reasons, he did not get any more money. So he is signed now through 23. 24 will void. So there's no guaranteed money after this season.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they're not moving on from him after 22. They're not in position next year if they have 3 first-round picks. I was asked this actually on my Twitch chat on Wednesday night. This is a great question. What might the Eagles do with all those picks? Right now, it's corner for the now and for the future, and DN.
I was going to say pass rusher's not too far behind, right? Yeah.
Well, Derek Barnett. See, here's the question.
Mm-hmm.
If Derek Barnett does not come on this year, I think you got to walk away.
Oh, I think there's no doubt about that. Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, you're not going to give him the same. I mean, he's making 10 million this year. So if he doesn't play well, he's not going to come back at 6 million. I think it'd be a starting DN. He either played well and earned an extension or he's going to go somewhere else. Yeah, no, I
agree.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose you could have like one of those like 8.5 to 9.5 sack years and get another 1-year deal out of it. But I don't know. I think that if that were to happen, it still proves our point that you need to use a high pick on a pass rusher. You just got to be able to bring a guy in.
Yep.
I'm really interested in the whole Josiah Scott versus Maddox thing because they're so similar. They're both guys who are picked in the 4th round. They're both same kind of athleticism, very, very athletic coming out of college, ran well coming out of college, but still presumed to be better inside the slot. Because what happens when you have these two guys battling it out and the tail is the same? Like what happens when the coaches look at it and they say, these guys are both of really similar skill set? Then do you move one? Do you try to,
but Maddox is
depth? I mean, what do you do there?
See, we forget how talented Maddox is. Because as you said earlier, we haven't seen him play well in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very fair point. He was tremendous as a rookie. He's got way better speed than football speed than Josiah Scott.
Mm-hmm.
But Scott is competitive. He's smart. It's a guy the Eagles liked for that draft last year. It was a 4th rounder for the Jaguars. So Scott, right now, as we said earlier, our understanding is they're going to line him up on the outside first to see if he could win a job on the outside just to make the team. Craig James has positional versatility, but let me ask you this question, because it's I think you might have brought it up in the past on one of the recent shows. I don't think we addressed it yet because we were going to save it for this show, but now's the time to address it. What happens if Darius Slay gets hurt?
I don't even like entertaining the idea because it's like the ghost of Eagles past. Like, just, I don't know, you're throwing Michael Jacquet out there, you're throwing Braylon Arnold out there. You're just
No, can't.
Well,
Can't.
I mean, you don't really have other options.
So that's why to me. Okay, that's why to me.
Grows up quickly. Yeah.
Well, even if McPherson does grow up quickly, that's fine. But you can't count on it as a rookie 4th-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
I would add 2 outside corners. I wouldn't just add 1. I don't care what
That's
future picks.
You.
They got to do. Well, let's put it this way: I would like them to get a street free agent like a Steven Nelson.
Okay.
They have just under $5 million in cap space without signing Dickerson. That's with all their other rookies signed other than Dickerson.
Mm-hmm.
It would really obviously if and when they trade Zach Ertz, boy, it's going to clear up some cap space that'll really help them.
Right.
But again, they put a value on Steven Nelson. It's not going to change what they're going to. As I understand, it won't change. As I said earlier in a previous show, just because you get more cap space doesn't mean you overspend for a guy you put a value on. You don't change the value for the player. The value is the value. It doesn't change, no matter how much money you have.
Right.
But they got to add a veteran corner. And if they could trade for one of these guys I was talking about, or some other guy that they like that is better than a depth chart, great. But they got to add 2 outside corners, not 1.
Well, the only way I can see that happening, Adam, is if, as you mentioned before, they trade for a guy who's on his rookie deal, like a pretty decent corner who's in year 3 or 4 of a rookie deal and is probably making less than $1 million on it because he was a 2nd or a 3rd round pick or something like that. Now, you could argue that was the Josiah Scott trade, and maybe they see some outside potential to him. I don't know, but I think that's really the only way they can do it is you sign a vet and you trade for a guy on a rookie deal with their financial situation.
Yeah, and I'm sure they don't want to restructure any more contracts.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So look, to me personally, that's what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be competitive if by a minor miracle they don't add a veteran and McPherson. Okay, let's say he winds up winning the outside job opposite Slay, but Slay gets hurt.
Mm-hmm.
They're in major trouble. That you can't go into the season thinking these other guys, Jacquet, who's a developmental guy you really want on the practice squad. The only reason why he'll make the team, unless he has an unbelievable training camp, is because they don't have anybody else. Right? They don't. Again, it's not about how many players you have; it's about how many players could do the job well. They can't count on any of those other guys you mentioned. Arnold, Hill, Taylor, Meters, forget it. Nobody knows anything about them. James, okay, Craig James has shown he can play in this league as a 4th corner. He can play slot or outside. But man, they got dire straits at this. But again, I know we're in June. I get it. I have to keep convincing myself, that it's only June. But it's not like you're going to get a corner on the street other than Richard Sherman, who they don't seem to be interested in at this point.
Wow, I forgot he was still out there. That's a good.
Yeah, I mean he's a certain type of corner. I'm sorry.
He's 32, but he's his own corner, right? I mean,
he's only his own, and he's a strictly cover 3, Seattle cover 3. Not all cover 3s are the same,
right?
And you just, when you really look at it, I've said this before. People ask me about Gary Connolly. He's a 4th corner. That's what he is. He's not a starting corner in any way, shape, or form. Buster Screen slot. DJ Hayden, really good slot. Dre Kirkpatrick. The way I understand it, he is 31, but the way I understand it, talking to some personal people I trust around the league, he's more of a backup at this point. Competitive to be a low end too.
Right.
He's a veteran. He's a $1 million guy at this point. So you're in dire straits here, man. Unless you trade for a guy and sign Nelson, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, no, that's the point, is that the ocean is flooded with guys that you already have. I mean, you've got to, you don't need a 4th corner. You don't need a 3 corner. You don't need a number 5 corner. You got an army of those just waiting for that.
That's like the Phillies pitching staff. They got 6s and 7s.
Yeah, well, what's Aaron Nola now? Is he one of those 5, 6s, and 7s?
No. But what I'm talking about is sticking Vince Velasquez out there.
Oh, I know.
Who's a 6? Who's a 6?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, they've had that problem for a while now. All right, we will move on from corner, talk about safety here. First, I want to remind all of our friends to keep checking out PHLSportsNation.com, doing a great job enhancing the fans' experience of their coverage of our Philadelphia sports teams. I'm not quite sure how they're going to be able to enhance the Sixers fans right now with anything, but I would go there. I'm sure there'll be some well-written stuff chronicling one of the most epic, meltdowns in forget Philadelphia sports history, probably in NBA history. I mean, that thing was epic.
If they don't win Friday, I mean, Doc, they choked the 3-1 lead last year in the bubble with the Clippers. That helped get him fired.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's not getting fired after the, no matter what happens, but that's a painful one, friends, as a lifelong Sixers fan. I mean,
that was rough.
Wednesday night was not fun, man. The epic choke, and you could just see it melding away, but this is an Eagle show. We'll talk about that another time.
Definitely. So make sure you check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. Find them on Twitter at phlsportsnation. And we'll pause real quick for another word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. All right, if you do head into Sky Motor Cars, make sure you tell them that Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get a great deal. All right, let's talk about the safety picture here. And some of this is it should be like predictable, except some of it is dependent on whether or not Rodney McLeod will enter camp being able to do anything. Like I assume Rodney, Adam, will start on PUP.
Oh, he has to.
He's got to. But it doesn't mean he could come off of it within 2 weeks.
Anytime.
Anytime. I'm just saying, like, the way he spoke, it didn't seem. He said he was optimistic he'd be ready for the season opener.
Oh, it's all about the season. Yeah, I expect him to stay on active PUP through training camp. This is my expectation. The Eagles haven't told me this, but this is the way these things work.
Mm-hmm.
You have to start on PUP first, because if you don't, you can't go back on it. Let's say he practiced like mid-August, his first day of practice.
Right.
And they wanted to put him back on. You can't do that.
Right. You cannot.
You have to do it at the start of training camp.
Right.
So they won't know if he's going to be ready for the regular season until probably the end of August, and we'll see. And I could tell you, my understanding is that Kevon Wallace started to come on. And we don't know what that means yet, because they didn't do any teamwork. They didn't do 7-on-7 or 11-on-11s. So it's just from a mental standpoint, not making errors, was explained to me, that this is good. He handled his assignments well. Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. Look, last year we told you, no matter what anyone was putting out there, he wasn't going to play. He didn't. He only played like, I'd have to look at the snap. The snap counts are extremely low because we were told he wasn't ready.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a kid who's got a lot of juice. I mean, he's very, very great energy, passion for the job. I'm interested to see if he could. I'm sorry?
Hard worker. Like, he's got the right mindset to get better.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see if McLeod is not ready for the start of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Could Wallace be that guy? And then Marcus Epps obviously has experience in this defense with Minnesota.
Yep.
Andrew Adams is not a guy you want starting. Harris is obviously starting at the other safety spot. So we'll see. Look, it probably wouldn't be a bad thing for them to sign another veteran safety, but right now it doesn't seem to be on the radar.
So Marcus Epps is the guy that I want the Eagles fans to really kind of draw the circle around as they get print out their 90 men and they start studying when training camp starts, who's going to be doing this, who's moving up, because last year in training camp, we were probably the first to report it, that he was really impressing the coaches. I mean, they were really liking what they were seeing, but his year got deterred by being on the COVID list for quite a while, if I'm not mistaken, right? Wasn't he on for several weeks of the season last year?
He was on for a bit, yeah. I mean, Mailata was on it for 2 weeks. That set him back.
Marcus was on for a while, though.
Yeah, Epps was.
Yeah,
right, for sure.
And that obviously, we've seen this with athletes in other sports too, where you come back and you're just not yourself, and you're still got lingering things. And so he definitely, obviously, was not able to kind of capitalize on what he had shown at OTAs and training camp last year. But he's still young. He's a guy who's got a little bit of time with Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. He's one of those guys who's a former Viking practice squad guy, I believe. So he knows the defense, or at least he should know this defense fairly well, and this coaching staff. And because of the opening it's not just the opening presented by Rodney McLeod's, being out, but you want a third safety on the field a lot these days. People are playing more hybrid defenses. Sometimes these guys, and Epps is a guy who's supposed to have some pretty decent coverage about him, can get in there in the slot perhaps, but or be the deep safety and somebody else comes.
Yeah, actually, Epps was never on the practice squad. He was drafted 6th round in 19. They cut him. Eagles claiming off waivers. Man, this is his 3rd year. Holy
wow. So his only experience with the Vikings was just being drafted. It was OTAs in training camp.
Yeah. Well, he was he was on the roster, and he was on the active roster in 19. He was cut
Okay, that's
in
what I'm
November.
saying. Okay.
Yeah, it was cut in November of 19. Man, I didn't know this was his third year. For some reason, I thought it was last year, but no. He and then obviously, as you said, he missed a lot of time on the COVID list for several weeks.
Right.
That sets you back. I mean, you see it in the NBA.
Yeah.
Some guys are just not themselves when they come back. Seth Curry took him a while to get back to normal. He was not doing well. He wasn't feeling right. He clearly was off his shot. Not anymore. Right. He's not. But sure. Look, I have friends I know who have had COVID. It took them 5 or 6 months to get their taste back.
Right.
So who knows? But yeah, Epps is, look, he's a guy's got good size. He knows his defense. But now, how good of a football player he is, who knows? Because he hasn't been put in the fire to be a starter.
Right. I think he was out, by the way, for 15 days. That's what it was in November. So anyway, I just think it's a kid who will have a better chance to prove himself. Obviously, Anthony Harris is going to be a starter, and if Rodney McLeod can play, comes back fine, he'll be a starter. And we'll see. We'll see if they use a third safety as much as they have in the past, because now they are loaded at nickel corner. When I say loaded, we assume that Maddox or Scott or maybe even Zach McPherson is somebody that they want to play in the slot at times. So they've got a lot of slot options. They may not use.
He won't be playing in the slot. Yeah, I mean, if
at all,
I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure he can, but I mean, it's not like, okay, let's put it this way: if he's in slot more than 20% of the time, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you want him. I can see him.
He better not be, because that would make no sense. Like,
right.
I don't see how. The only way is if they added 2 veteran corners, and even then, you want Maddox in the slot, so he won't be playing in the slot very much.
That's true. He could probably play in nickel, but be the outside guy, and then move Maddox or Scott or somebody else into the slot.
Yes.
All right, that would make a lot more sense. Yeah. All right. So just keep an eye on Marcus Epps, because he'll get a shot to prove himself in this camp. I mean, Andrew Adams, you mentioned it. You don't want him on the field. He's a special teams guy. Elijah Riley, they seem to like last year, Adam. I mean, he'll compete, but again, do you want Elijah Riley beating everybody out? That's almost like says that you're not, getting what you want out of your other guys.
Yes, unless you always have to have room for a guy like Craig James, who last year was one of their best corners in training camp. It wasn't just because they didn't have anyone else. He actually legitimately earned a roster spot. From my understanding was he was terrific. We actually reported this last summer that he was the surprise of training camp. I didn't know it until, I don't know when we put it out there on one of these shows, but I just remember, like, Craig James, no, this can't be right. And then I checked on him. I was like, all right, okay, might as well put it out there. They like him because he could play inside or outside, and smart guy. He earned a roster spot. He could, but again, if your druthers, he's really a fourth corner. But this team, they got a bunch in 4, 5s, and 6s.
Yes, they do. So let me ask you this though: if McLeod, for whatever reason, is a setback or he's not ready, you just mentioned that the Eagles could probably use 2 corners, right?
Yep.
They have limited funds here. So if McLeod's not ready, do you consider maybe converting some, either signing a veteran safety, somebody who's going to be like,
a lot of them out there,
waived on the cut down? Well, there's some out there now, and there'll be even more after the cut down.
They're literally, it is the deepest position in free agency, probably other than defensive tackle.
Yeah, for a reason.
Malik Hooker's would cost a lot of money. He played for Gannon, so they know each other, but that's a lot of money. Young guy too. Kenny Vaccaro is going to cost money. Trey Boston keeps going from team to team to team to team to team. He's not signing for $1 million. Bradley McDougald was started for Seattle. My understanding is the Jets have some interest in bringing him back. We'll see. Jeff Heath, he's a post safety. Forget it. Sendejo is obviously a box player. They know, they've been there, done that. Yes, he knows the defense, but been there, done that. Jaleel Adai's bounced around a little bit. There are Jalen Watkins is out there.
Jalen Watkins, how about that?
Yeah, he's still there. I'm sorry.
That would be full circle if he could come back here.
Yep. George Iloka knows the defense, playing for the Vikings. He's a bit tall corner. He's like 6'2", 6'3".
Oh.
There are a lot of safeties. Blake Countess technically is a safety, but he's really only a returner.
Right.
So look, bottom line is that I would personally bring another safety in, but they may not be looking at it that way. Because there's ways to save money here. You can't solve every issue in one off season. But the corner, they got it. To me, they got to add 2. If you and I are running the show, we're adding 2. I'm winning that argument.
You might wind up getting away if he doesn't win the slot job of moving Avonte Maddox to safety and seeing what you got.
Oh yeah, true. That could be one. But then that you can do if you had 2 outside corners who you think could play, who could contribute, and you use Craig James in the slot. He would probably be the top slot guy. Josiah Scott, we'll see. Josiah Scott has got to show he can play this league yet. He hasn't really done anything.
Right. All right. Well, that'll be I can't imagine. We have so many storylines at camp. I mean, it's going to be
we have a 3-hour show.
A ton on Jalen Hurts. There's going to be a ton on the wide receivers. There's going to be a ton on the corners. I'm getting like dizzy just thinking about how we're going to be able to cover all this in like an hour, twice a week or 3 times a week by the time we start up.
It's funny. People they got on our crap about it. They're like, no, we don't want shorter shows. We're like, okay, we got it. We got you. We hear you.
Yeah, we'll talk more. We'll keep talking.
Yeah, Q&A got it. Everybody, we did one show in the last like 2 months under an hour. I think it might have been the previous show.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll go long. We promise you. That preview show, when you do training camp preview, which is for, I think we're going to drop that one the day before training camp. It might be a 7-hour show. Like somebody, I've never like
just run that one by me first before we do that. All right.
Yeah, I know something. Right. It might be 2 hours. Who the hell knows? But maybe we'll do 2 parts. But if you look at it, right, receiver battles like crazy, like the rotation. We don't know. We don't know who's starting. We don't know what the rotation is.
Right.
Backup jobs on the offensive line.
Right.
Linebacker, yes, 100%. Running back, backup jobs. Oh my God, competition like crazy. D tackle backup jobs like crazy. All wide open. Linebacker,
safety,
jobs.
Everything.
So safety, corner. Yeah, man. This is we might need a surrogate. We might need to get someone else to help us out here. We might have to bring one of our listeners in to help us out. This is crazy, man. There's
a marathon ITB.
It's gonna be exhausting. Yeah, that show.
Bring in the lefty.
Yes.
All right. So by the way, some other things coming up. We're going to start doing a little bit more analytical work or analytics, using analytics, I should say. We have an intern working with us on that specifically. His name is Zane Gonzalez, a Penn State student, and he's already sent me some info.
Welcome, Zane.
Yeah, we've been starting to chop down. In fact, I want to take a second to thank Zane Gonzalez, as along with 2 interns who've been doing a great work for us for a while. Justin Morgenstein and Tyler Strasser have been doing an unbelievable job, doing a lot of work behind the scenes, doing the promotional stuff, aggregating the stuff into our pods into stories. They're phenomenal kids. We really thank them. So just wanted to give them a quick shout out.
I wish these jobs were open. When you and I were in school, man, I would have killed for a job like this.
Oh yeah, no, they're getting an experience, all right.
Instead, I work for Howard Eskin. No, I'm just kidding.
Did you?
Yeah, it's crazy. Then when you and I wound up working for Spike, his son Spike must have been 10 years old when he was calling in,
right,
to talk to his dad at Channel 3 in the mid '80s when I was interning for Howard.
Were they arguing?
No, but it's funny. Pete Rose would call in, Larry Boa.
Nice.
All these, yes, it was a cool job, man. At like 18, 19 years old, very cool.
Well, that's a good segue to what I was going to say next. We're compiling, and you got to put that in the file. Our list of stories that we're going to go for. We're going to do a stories podcast. Some of our best and brightest and funniest and craziest stories from covering the NFL and covering the Eagles over the last few years. So we'll do that probably later in July, maybe right before training camp. When we've got a little time to get before we get down to the crazy nitty gritty. So I look forward to doing that with you, Adam. And I know some of the stories already are just waiting to pop. So
there's this one agent story that you've now told me twice, because you told me it a couple years ago and I didn't hear the whole part of it. You just told me this past week, and you could protect the agent's name, but you got to tell it. It's so absurd. It's typical of this. I can't stand this agent. I used to like the guy, but I just don't. Just the way that the guy handled it was absurd.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I was going to jump into that, but now that you put it out there,
you don't have to. It's your call. It's your story. But I just, the absurdity of what the crap that Geoff and I have had to deal with in our career.
Yeah.
From dealing with club person and like front office people or coaches. The coach has actually been pretty good, but agents especially, because you can't criticize their player.
Right.
You can't tell the truth. And
Right.
it's just a game that you play, and then when you do the right thing, you're very professional. They still blank on you because you told the truth or you reported something they didn't want out, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, the common person who is not a reporter can relate to this. Whether in your line of work, whatever you do, whenever you're talking with someone or working alongside someone who is just so inherently biased about something that is their own, it's hard to have good dialogue and be candid and have a mutual respect, because you just realize someone's not grounded in reality all the time. And yeah, a good example is when you're a coach. Like, a lot of parents are coaches at either little league level or high school or club level, and they have to deal with parents a lot. And every parent thinks that their kid's the next LeBron James or Sue Bird or whoever you want, whatever it is. I mean, they just think their kids are superstars. And umpires actually have it worse. I think the treatment of umpires at the school level, whether it's township or high school or middle school, whatever, is just ridiculous from the parents. I mean, it's awful. Not, by the way, that's not any experience that I've recently had on my softball team. I think we have great parents, and we treat umpires well and kids well. I'm talking about when I was a high school beat reporter. I used to cover prep sports for a newspaper in Central Jersey, right out of college, and it was really the high school sports and the parents and how they treated coaches that was really bad. I saw some really ugly things there, and that's kind of what I was more referring to. Whenever you have people who are so biased about their own that they can't see the forest through the trees, it's really difficult. And of course, as Adam is mentioning, agents are a part of that. And so Adam and I have both had our battles with agents. We also know some really great agents too. I don't want to make it seem like
There's just a couple that over the years.
Yeah,
you and I have had some battles with some of these agents, and we scratch our head. We're like, what is the deal?
Exactly.
What is the deal?
Exactly. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. Big thanks to our producer, Hunter Brody, putting in all that work on Sports Talk with Broads on YouTube and his broadsmedia.com website. And check him out on Twitter at Broads81 and at Broadsmedia. And as we always do, we thank you, and I mean it, we thank you all for flying with us inside the bird.